So yesterday I saw a movie about a true story that inspired Moby Dick. I saw In the Heart of the Sea, and let me tell you about it. So, like I said before, In the Heart of the Sea is the true tale that inspired Moby Dick. So if you go into the movie thinking that it's Moby Dick, you're gonna be sadly mistaken. At the beginning of this film, Herman Melville, played by Ben Whishaw, Q, and he was also in Suffragette, that I just mentioned. And if you happen not to know who Melville is, well, he's the author of Moby Dick, so just to give you some clarification. But anyway, it starts off with Melville trying to get an interview with this one, or used to be, whaler. That whaler being played by Brendan Gleeson, who, he was in Suffragette just not too long ago either. But anyway, this ex-whaler is the only one left alive to be able to talk about the ship, the whaling ship, Essex. And this tale is about the whaling ship that went out to sea, encountered a really, really large whale, really large, pissed-off whale, in the tale of Chris Hemsworth's character, who is the first mate, who wants to be captain, but he hasn't been born into this whaling company, so he's an outsider. People don't want him to be a captain of a ship, and his disagreements and arguments with the actual captain of this ship, who was born into this because his family happens to be really famous whalers. So yeah, these two butt heads, and there's some good conflict with the two of them. But eventually it becomes a matter of trying to survive against nature, trying to survive while being stranded in the ocean with a pissed off whale and very, very little food supplies. Now, quite frankly, I really like this film, and yeah, I think it's getting crapped on a little too much. This honestly is a big star-studded cast, and there's a lot of good acting involved in this movie. Unfortunately, the characters themselves aren't too well developed. There's not a lot to all the characters, even our main character, who is played by Chris Hemsworth. They're very flat and one-minded characters. And some of them are your stereotypical characters you'd find on these type of movies, like these whaling ships. Nevertheless, all of them were greatly acted, and they made it entertaining enough to be able to sit through everything. A lot of the shots and the CGI, the whales, everything looks really, really great. There's a lot of professional shots, a lot of really artistic ones, a lot of ones that just look breathtaking. And whenever you see the whales, you get a really great sense of scope of this movie, of how big the whales are. And I thought the whaling sequences in the film were really great. They really showed just how brutal things could get. It could have gotten a lot brutaler, but it's still, they have to go inside the whale to get the oil, and it's pretty gruesome. And at times during these whaling sequences, it is really haunting and really disturbing, and you feel bad for the whales, which ultimately is what the movie's ultimately about, and what Moby Dick's major theme could be considered. While this story itself isn't Moby Dick, you can tell that some of the themes from Moby Dick has come from this true story. Now, I think some people are disappointed just because there's not enough of the giant whale in the movie. And while I could kind of understand why they would be griping about it, but at the same time, it's not like it's Moby Dick. It's just the story that inspired Moby Dick. And while there is a giant whale that does attack, and it does constantly hunt them down, he really just shows up every so often, and some people might be really disappointed with that. But God, when he does show up, it is really epic and really intimidating and very scary. Some of the horrors and atrocities that these characters have to do in order to survive is pretty horrific. I mean, it really is. It's disturbing. I think the movie has a lot going for it. There's a lot of really nice ideas, a lot of nice conflicts between the characters and the crew members. It shares very similar themes to Moby Dick without being completely Moby Dick. And while many of the characters aren't developed at all, the acting was really good. I personally wasn't bored throughout the whole movie. It was about 2 hours and 2 minutes long, and quite frankly, it felt like only an hour and a half had gone by the time it ended. It felt really fast-paced to me. In the movie Unbroken, when they were stranded in the middle of the sea, it felt a lot longer than what happened in the Heart of the Sea. And In the Heart of the Sea was technically longer than the Unbroken sequence, but the Unbroken sequence felt really boring, really tacked on there. Now, even though I do feel this is a really good movie, it isn't as epic as I wished it would be, and there is a bit, there's something about it that doesn't feel quite epic enough for this type of story and this type of movie. But at the same time, I did really enjoy myself, I liked it, and I'm going to give In the Heart of the Sea 3.5 stars. So, have you seen In the Heart of the Sea? What did you think about it? Go ahead and comment. And as always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.